The deep blue Atlantic held more than just coral secrets. In the newly opened underwater paradise, the Atlantis Luxe Resort, chilling whispers spread through the panoramic glass separating civilization's comfort from the aquatic immensity. A translucent figure, with empty eyes and ancient attire, glided through guest chambers, an apparition many swore was the underwater lady, the former owner of the castle that had sunk centuries ago in these very waters. But were these just ghost stories for thrill-seeking tourists, or was something more sinister behind the failing systems and escalating panic? Mystery Incorporated answered the call, and while Shaggy and Scooby dreamed of the submerged buffet, Velma was already sniffing out a less ethereal and far more ingenious truth. What truly sank with the original castle, and why did its echo now return, disturbing the peace of the deep? The call came on a rainy night, city neon reflecting in puddles. Fred, with his map and meticulous plans, presented the case. The Atlantis Luxe Resort, a marvel of modern engineering, was on the verge of collapse, not due to structural failure, but something the management hesitated to name. "They say it's a haunting," the voice on the phone had whispered, almost inaudible. Daphne, always abreast of the latest trends, had already researched the resort, an ambitious project promising an unprecedented luxury experience, completely submerged. What she found, however, was more than just stunning photos. There were ancient legends about the original castle, the Montesquieu, a noble family whose home had been swallowed by the sea centuries ago. The trip to the Atlantic coast was marked by anticipation, and for Scooby and Shaggy, by excitement for the promised underwater dining hall. "Imagine that, Shaggy. Fresh fish anytime." Scooby drooled, his tongue hanging out. Velma, on the other hand, was already engrossed in books and articles about underwater engineering and paranormal events. "Ghosts don't cause air conditioning systems to fail, guys," she observed, adjusting her glasses. "There must be a more logical explanation." Upon arriving at the embarkation port, the team was greeted by a pale and visibly shaken man, Mr. Dubois, the Atlantis manager. He led them to a small transport submarine that would take them to the resort. The descent was breathtaking. As sunlight faded and the abysses opened, the Atlantis Luxe Resort emerged from the shadows, a colossal structure of glass and metal, lit from within, like a jewel embedded in the seabed. The glass corridors offered stunning views of marine life, but the beauty was overshadowed by the palpable tension in the air. In the main lobby, an atmosphere of apprehension hung heavy. Guests whispered and staff seemed frightened. Mr. Dubois led them to a meeting room, where he presented a security video. The image was grainy but undeniable. A spectral figure, with a flowing veil and feminine features, appeared to float through one of the glass corridors, abruptly disappearing like smoke. "She appears at different points in the resort," Dubois explained, his voice choked. "Staff report that the lighting and communication systems fail whenever she appears. No one can explain it." Fred began to devise an investigation plan, while Daphne questioned staff about the sightings and the peculiarities of the underwater lady. Scooby and Shaggy, true to their nature, found the dining hall and, amidst a mountain of snacks, overheard frightened conversations among the cooks. One of them, a corpulent man named Jacques, swore he had seen the underwater lady floating directly through the kitchen wall, causing all appliances to short-circuit for a moment. Velma, oblivious to the general panic and snacks, focused on the technical data. She requested access to maintenance logs and resort system diagrams. While analyzing energy consumption graphs and failure reports, an anomaly caught her eye. Unexplained power surges coincided with the ghost sightings. "That's not a ghost," Velma muttered to herself, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It's a power issue, or someone is creating one." The first night at the Atlantis was tense. The team split up to cover more ground. Fred and Daphne patrolled the glass corridors, trying to catch another sighting, while Scooby and Shaggy, assigned to guard the dining hall, gorged themselves on fish and chips. Velma locked herself in the control room, immersed in data. Suddenly, a sharp scream echoed through the corridors. Fred and Daphne ran towards the sound, finding a maid passed out, her eyes wide with horror. At the end of the corridor, the light flickered and, for a split second, a swirling shape seemed to vanish into the darkness. The hook for the next chapter is, who or what was terrorizing the Atlantis Luxe Resort, and what secrets did the depths still hold? The incident with the maid reinforced the urgency of the investigation. Fred and Daphne analyzed the area where the maid fainted, looking for visual clues or anomalies, while Velma deepened her analysis of the resort systems. The electrical failures were real, but the power surges accompanying them were inconsistent with a simple overload. It's as if something is draining and injecting energy into the network simultaneously, in a controlled way, she explained to Fred and Daphne, showing them the graphs. This points to external manipulation, not a ghost. Daphne, always intuitive, realized that the legend of the underwater lady needed to be explored further. She found the resort's historian, an eccentric fellow named Dr. Armitage, who lived in a library crammed with old books and naval maps. He was an enthusiast of local maritime history and, in particular, the saga of the Montesquieu family and their sunken castle. Legend has it that Lady Eleanora Montesquieu, the last owner of the castle, loved her home so much that when it sank in a mysterious storm, her soul became trapped in the ruins, Dr. Armitage recited with fervor, his eyes gleaming. Some believe she vowed to protect her family's treasures and secrets, even after death. He showed Daphne an ancient map of the original castle, with its intricate secret passages and a hidden chamber that, he claimed, held a family treasure. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy, still on their food surveillance mission, discovered an abandoned archive room in the back of the dining hall. Attracted by the smell of forgotten snacks, they entered, only to find dusty boxes of old documents and building plans. Amidst the mess, Scooby stumbled upon a folder containing detailed schematics of the Atlantis' ventilation system. One detail caught Shaggy's attention, a secondary ventilation duct that seemed to lead to an unmapped area of the resort. "Where do you think this goes, Scooby?" he whispered, curiosity overcoming fear. Fred, using his engineering knowledge, began testing Velma's theories. He inspected control panels, looking for signs of tampering or hidden devices. He discovered a secondary access door, cleverly camouflaged, that led to a restricted area used for maintenance. The place was dimly lit and filled with pipes and wiring. During his exploration, Fred found loose wires that didn't seem to be part of the resort's original wiring, but rather a clandestine installation. Next to them, there were scratch marks on the metal, as if something heavy had been dragged. He also noticed a small opening in the wall, which seemed to connect to the ventilation system. Simultaneously, Velma, analyzing Dr. Armitage's information, noticed a strange coincidence. The date of the Montesquieu castle sinking coincided with a period of intense seismic activity in the region, something Dr. Armitage had mentioned as a historical anomaly. She began to theorize that the ghost could be a projection, an illusion, used to cover up something much more tangible and lucrative. The team gathered to share their findings. Fred showed the loose wires and the marks. Daphne talked about the legends and the secret chamber. Scooby and Shaggy presented the ventilation map. Velma, with her keen insight, began to connect the dots. If someone is using the electrical system to create the ghost illusion, and if there's an unmapped area connected to the ventilation, and if the legend speaks of a treasure, maybe the treasure isn't what we think, she pondered. Suddenly, the dining hall lights flickered and went out completely. A swirling shadow appeared outside the glass, slowly floating towards the team. Panic erupted among the guests. Velma acted quickly, activating the emergency lights. The figure dissipated. But the impact was evident. Fred shined his flashlight, illuminating the dark corridor. On the floor, near where the figure disappeared, he noticed a small, fresh scratch on the glass, as if something had been dragged there. The hook for the next chapter is, was the underwater lady more than an illusion, and what exactly was being secretly moved in the depths of the resort? The scratch on the glass intrigued the team. If it was a ghost, how could it leave a physical mark? Velma immediately dismissed the supernatural hypothesis. "This is proof that there's something physical there," she stated, examining the scratch with a magnifying glass. And the way it disappeared, maybe it's not a ghost, but a projection. Fred, using his engineering knowledge, began looking for projection points within the corridors and security cameras. He noticed that the appearances always occurred in specific sections of the resort, where the architecture allowed for a greater concentration of light beams or a screen for projection. Daphne, meanwhile, continued her research into the Montesquieu family, looking for any information that could link the legend to projection technology or a treasure with electronic components. Scooby and Shaggy, still on their kitchen surveillance mission, decided to investigate the secondary ventilation duct they had found. With an improvised map and a lot of courage, motivated by the promise of an extra snack, they squeezed through the narrow opening. The passage was dark and dusty, and the muffled sound of the resort's gears echoed around them. They crawled for a while until the passage opened into a hidden chamber, a large, unmapped space filled with electronic equipment and cables. In the center of the room, there was a large projector, connected to a complex network of wires and small hidden speakers that mimicked the whispers of the ghost. "Look, Shaggy! It's a ghost machine!" Scooby exclaimed, pointing to the projector. They realized that the projector was connected to a high-capacity battery system, which explained the power surges Velma had detected. In addition, there was a pile of circuit boards and small autonomous robots, designed to glide smoothly over surfaces, creating the scratches and marks Fred had found. Just as Scooby and Shaggy were about to investigate further, a tall, slender man, wearing a resort technician's uniform, entered the chamber. He had a cunning smile on his face and, in his hands, held a remote control. It was Mr. Finch, the head of security at Atlantis, a man the team had briefly met in the lobby. Finch was startled to see Scooby and Shaggy, and quickly activated the remote control. The projection of the underwater lady appeared in one of the resort corridors, visible through a small window in the chamber. "You shouldn't be here," Finch said, his voice tense. He tried to stop them from escaping, but Scooby and Shaggy, driven by fear and adrenaline, managed to evade him amidst the equipment. As they fled, Shaggy grabbed one of the circuit boards and stuffed it into his pocket. Back with the group, Scooby and Shaggy, out of breath, recounted what they saw. Velma examined the circuit board Shaggy had taken. "This is a component of an electromagnetic pulse generator," she exclaimed. "That's why the systems were failing. They were using these pulses to disrupt the normal functioning of the equipment, creating a smoke screen for the projection." Fred and Daphne, after hearing the report, confronted Mr. Dubois, the resort manager. He was shocked, but didn't seem surprised. "I suspected Finch was involved in something," he admitted. "He's obsessed with the story of Lady Eleonora. He even told me that she guided him in his plans, that it was his destiny to find a treasure that wasn't of his own blood." Velma, with the circuit board in hand and Mr. Dubois's revelation, began to piece together the puzzle. The underwater lady was not a restless spirit, but a projection. The mystery was not supernatural, but technological. And Mr. Finch, the head of security, seemed to be the prime suspect. But what would be his motive? What was he really seeking with all this elaborate staging? The hook for the next chapter is, with Mr. Finch identified as the likely manipulator, the team needed to unravel the true motive behind the staging, and what he hoped to find in the secret chamber of the legendary Montesquieu Castle. With Finch identified as the prime suspect, the team focused on unraveling his true objective. Velma, with the circuit board in hand, performed a more in-depth analysis. "This technology is complex," she explained, "and the pulse generator is very powerful. It's not something an ordinary person would assemble alone." Fred, using his security knowledge, began to investigate Finch's past. He discovered that Finch had previously worked for a security company specializing in artificial intelligence and holographic projection systems. His dismissal was shrouded in mystery, with rumors of unauthorized projects and misuse of company technology. Daphne, for her part, returned to Dr. Armitage, the historian. She asked about the Montesquieu family treasure and if there was any connection to advanced technology. Dr. Armitage, after some reluctance, revealed a family secret. Lady Eleonora, besides being a noblewoman, was a brilliant and eccentric inventor. She had developed a prototype of an underwater communication system, something far ahead of its time, which was supposedly part of the treasure. The legend said that the treasure included not only jewels, but also the blueprints and prototype of this device. It was a device to communicate with the outside world even at great depths, he explained, a true engineering marvel of the time, but it disappeared with the castle. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy, who had promised to monitor the kitchen, overheard a conversation between two employees about Finch. They said he spent hours in the maintenance area, whenever the resort lights failed. They also mentioned that he always carried a large backpack and seemed to be moving heavy things from one place to another. Fred and Velma met in the control room and began to cross-reference the information. The power surges, the projection technology, Finch's history, and the legend of an underwater communication device. Finch isn't just haunting the resort, Velma concluded, he's using the confusion to cover up something more. Fred had an idea. What if he's trying to find or activate Eleonora's device? The system failures would be to divert attention while he searched for it or manipulated it. The team decided to monitor Finch closely. They installed discreet security cameras in areas where he was frequently seen, and Scooby and Shaggy, in their snack delivery disguises, followed Finch through the corridors. During their surveillance, they saw him entering and exiting the secret chamber they had discovered, always with the backpack. During one of Finch's absences from the chamber, the team broke into the location. There, they found the projector and the pulse generators. However, in a corner, under a tarp, there was something else. Upon removing the tarp, they revealed a careful excavation in the chamber floor, which provided access to an ancient and unmapped passage, connected to the original structure of the Montesquieu castle. The passage was narrow, but it led to an even deeper chamber, flooded and sealed by an immense rock. Finch wasn't just creating the illusion, he was trying to reach something beyond the resort's limits. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. Finch had returned. He found them in the chamber, with the tarp revealed. "What are you doing here?" he growled, the remote control in hand. "You shouldn't have interfered." He activated the projector, and the underwater lady floated menacingly towards the team. But this time, the image was sharper, almost real. The hook for the next chapter is. With Finch cornered, the team needed not only to expose him, but also to discover what he was trying to extract from the submerged chamber, and why the projection of the underwater lady seemed more alive than ever. The projection of the underwater lady, more vivid than ever, advanced upon the team. Fred quickly pushed Daphne and Velma behind the equipment, while Scooby and Shaggy squeezed into a corner, trembling. "He's increasing the power," Velma exclaimed, analyzing the projection. "This could damage the system." Finch, with a maniacal grin, explained his plan. "Lady Eleonora guided me. She showed me the way to her greatest secret, the sunken heart." He revealed that the treasure wasn't jewels, but a prototype of an underwater energy and communication system, developed by Lady Eleonora, which connected to a vast network of natural energetic crystals on the ocean floor. The device had the potential to generate clean and limitless energy, and Finch believed that with it, he would control global underwater communication, becoming the most powerful man in the world. He had created the projection to drive people away while he worked to remove the rock sealing the passage to the sunken heart. While Finch spoke, Velma noticed something. The projection, though sharper, occasionally showed glitches, as if the power source was fluctuating. "He's overloading the system," she whispered to Fred. Fred had an idea. He knew that high-power projectors needed constant cooling. "Shaggy, Scooby. The ventilation duct." Fred shouted. "Obstruct the cooling." Scooby and Shaggy, understanding the plan, quickly crawled back into the ventilation duct. With the help of some strategically placed snacks, they managed to obstruct the projector's air vents, causing the equipment to overheat. The projection of the underwater lady began to flicker and distort, losing its form. Taking advantage of Finch's distraction, as he desperately tried to reactivate the cooling system, Fred and Daphne acted. Fred, with a swift move, deactivated Finch's remote control, and Daphne, with her agility, managed to tie him up with a cable. The projector finally failed, and the underwater lady disappeared completely. With Finch in custody, the team examined the submerged chamber. The rock sealing the passage was partially removed, revealing a bluish glow coming from the depths. It was the sunken heart, the prototype of Lady Eleanor's device, covered in crystal incrustations and algae. The device was an engineering marvel, a tangle of copper wires and rare gems, with a pulsating core of blue light. Mr. Dubois, the resort manager, was called. He was shocked to see the truth behind the haunting. "I can't believe Finch would do this," he said, visibly shaken. "He was always so dedicated." The team explained to Finch that Eleanor's device was not a tool for control, but for coexistence. Dr. Armitage, who had been called to assist in the investigation, explained that Eleanor's writings indicated that she intended to use the device to study marine life at extreme depths and to communicate with ocean creatures, not to dominate them. Finch had misinterpreted the legend, seeking power where there was only curiosity and respect for nature. As the underwater police arrived to arrest Finch, the Mystery Incorporated team observed the sunken heart. It was a fascinating relic, proof of the ingenuity of a woman ahead of her time. The device was carefully removed and taken to a specialized laboratory, where it would be studied and preserved. The resort began to return to normal. The system failures stopped, and the atmosphere of fear dissipated. Guests, previously terrified, were now fascinated by the story of the true mystery behind the underwater lady. Scooby and Shaggy, satisfied with their contribution, and the extra snacks, watched the underwater sunset, as marine life swam peacefully outside the glass. Fred, Daphne, and Velma, as always, had solved the mystery, proving that behind every ghost, there is always a logical truth and, often, a complex human story. The hook for the next chapter is: with the mystery of the underwater lady solved and a sunken heart recovered, the Mystery Incorporated team prepared to leave the Atlantis Lux Resort, but were all questions truly answered, and what would the future hold for Lady Eleanor's legacy? The Atlantis Lux Resort, once held captive by a spectral illusion, emerged from chaos, its depths now guarding Lady Eleanor's legacy and the unveiled truth. The sunken heart, once a legend twisted by greed, would now be a beacon of innovation, a testament to the harmony between human ingenuity and respect for the ocean. Mystery Incorporated departed, leaving behind tranquility and the certainty that, behind every veil of mystery, logic and curiosity always triumph, transforming unfounded fears into valuable lessons about the hidden truth in the depths. The Atlantis Lux Resort, once held captive by a spectral illusion, emerged from chaos, its depths now guarding Lady Eleanor's legacy and the unveiled truth. The sunken heart, once a legend twisted by greed, would now be a beacon of innovation, a testament to the harmony between human ingenuity and respect for the ocean. Mystery Inc. departed, leaving behind tranquility and the certainty that, behind every veil of mystery, logic and curiosity always triumph, transforming unfounded fears into valuable lessons about the hidden truth in the depths.